Hi, boys and girls. This is the rest of Chapter 5 of The Mouse and the Motorcycle, and I'm also going to start Chapter 6. So when we left off, Ralph fell asleep on his motorcycle outside Keith's room, and Keith couldn't hear him wake up. And Matt, the bellboy, is talking to him, and they can both understand each other as well. Ralph realized that Matt was a friend. Say, he began, how about helping a fellow out? Sure, agreed Matt. What can I do for you? Open the door a crack, just enough so I can ride through. I promised the boy I would park his motorcycle under the bed. Good place, said Matt. The maid never cleans there if she can help it. Very quietly, he turned the knob and opened the door just enough for Ralph to ride through. Ralph bumped over the edge of the carpet, swung out around the wastebasket and the bedside table, and was about to drive under the bed when... Eek! Screamed the boy's mother, who was standing in the doorway between 2:15 and 2:16 in her bathrobe with her hair up in rollers. A mouse! Ralph put on a burst of speed and shot under the bed. Where? Asked the boy's father, coming in from 2:16. Under the bed! I'll look, Mom, said the boy, jumping out of bed. Keith's face appeared under the lifted edge of the bedspread where Ralph sat trembling on the motorcycle. The boy held out his hand and beckoned. Ralph understood. He dismounted and ran up the boy's arm inside the sleeve of his pajamas until he came to the crook of his elbow. There he waited, shivering, to see what would happen next. Down at the end of his sleeve, he could see the boy's fingers close around the motorcycle. Then he felt himself being lifted as the boy rose from his hands and knees. It's just my motorcycle, Keith said. Yes. That's it, agreed his mother. The door opened, and the mouse rode in. The boy's father began to laugh. You are still dreaming. But I'm positive, insisted the boy's mother, that you saw a mouse on a little red motorcycle, finished the boy's father, and he laughed even harder. You make that sound ridiculous, objected the mother. Well, snorted the father with laughter. Well, perhaps I was dreaming, admitted the mother reluctantly, but I know I saw a mouse. I'm positive, and I'm going to report it to the management. I knew the minute we moved into this spooky old place that it had mice. Now I've done it, thought Ralph inside his pajama sleeve. All right, this chapter is chapter 6. It is called The Peanut Butter Sandwich. I told you to be careful, scolded Keith when his parents had gone to dress Ralph and crawled down his arm into his hand. It wasn't my fault the door blew shut. Ralph jumped from the hand of the bedspread through Keith. Though Keith was a friendly boy, even a generous one, Ralph still did not like the feel of his skin against his paws. It must be terrible to go through life without fur, and such a nuisance having to wear clothes that had to be washed and drip-dried. Ralph knew all about drip-drying. Many were the drops of water from shirts and slips that had dodged in, going in and out of the mouse hole. You didn't have to stay out so long, Keith pointed out as he began to dress. What's the use of having a motorcycle if you can't go tearing around staying out late? Ralph asked reasonably. You don't have a motorcycle, said Keith. I just let you use mine, and you better be careful. I like that motorcycle, and I don't want anything to happen to it. I'll take care of it, promised Ralph, somewhat chastened. I don't want anything to happen to it either. It's going to be harder to get a chance to ride now that my mother has seen you, said Keith. She's a terribly good housekeeper, and she's sure to complain to management. Speaking of breakfast, you people are too tidy, complained Ralph. I'm not getting enough to eat around here. You don't leave any crumbs. I never thought of it, said Keith. What would you like to eat? Ralph was astonished. This was the first time in his life anyone had asked him what he would like to eat. It had always been a question of what he could get his paws on. You mean I have a choice? He asked, incredulous. Sure, said the boy. All I have to do is order it when we go down to breakfast, and I'll bring you some. Ralph had to take time to think. After a diet of Zyback and graham crackers provided by little children, bits of candy and an occasional peanut or apple core left by medium-sized children, or a crust of toast and a dab of jam left by an adult who had ordered breakfast sent up from room service, the possibilities of choosing his own meal were almost too much. I know what I'd like, Ralph said at last, but I don't know what you call it. Once some people who said they were almost out of money stayed in these rooms. They had 4 children, all of them hungry, and they couldn't afford to go to the dining room, so they got some bread and spread it with something brown out of a jar and put some more of that bread on top. They whispered all the time they were eating because they didn't want the maid or the bellboy to know they were having a meal in their room. Afterwards, they all got down on their hands and knees and picked up every single crumb on the carpet so no one would guess they'd eaten in their rooms. It was a great disappointment. It smelled so good, like peanuts, only better. The boy laughed. It was a peanut butter sandwich. Sure, I'll bring you a peanut butter sandwich, or part of one. I'll eat part of it myself. It'll be kind of a funny breakfast, but I won't mind that. Where will you leave it? Asked Ralph. Keith thought a minute. Where do you live? He asked. In the knothole under the pillow? Or under the window? No kidding, laughed Keith. That's the hole I poked my finger in last night. I'll say you did, said Ralph. Scared me out of a year's growth. Nobody's ever guessed it's a mouse hole because it's a knot hole instead of a chewed hole. I tell you what, said Keith. I'll bring up part of the peanut butter sandwich and poke it through the knot hole. Just like room service. Ralph could not have been more pleased with this suggestion. What about the motorcycle? He asked. Where are you going to leave that? In my suitcase, I guess. Oh, come on, pleaded Ralph. Have a heart. Leave it somewhere where I can get it while you're out during the day. You're supposed to be in your mouse hole, asleep, not riding around in the daylight where people can see you. Well, gee whiz, can't a fellow even look at it? Asked Ralph. I bet you like to look at a big motorcycle yourself. Yes, I do, admitted the boy. Well, I'll leave it back under the bed, like I said, but you promise not to ride it until after dark. Scout's honor! Ralph jumped off the bed and ran to the knothole. Ralph's home was furnished with a clutter of things people drop on the floor of a hotel room. Bits of Kleenex, hair, ravelings. His mother was always planning to straighten it out, but she never got around to it. She was always too busy fussing and worrying. Now, as Ralph expected, she was dividing Rice Krispie crumbs among his squeaky bunch of little brothers and sisters while she waited to scold him. Ralph, if I have told you once, I've told you 1,000 times, she began. Guess what? Interrupted Ralph in an attempt to change the subject. Someone in 215 is going to bring us a real peanut butter sandwich. Ralph, cried his frightened mother, you haven't been associating with people? Aw, he's just a boy, said Ralph, deciding to keep the complete story of the dangers and the glories of his past night to himself. He wouldn't hurt us. He likes mice. But he's a person, said his mother. That doesn't mean he has to be bad, said Ralph. Just like Pop used to say, people shouldn't say all mice are timid just because some mice are, or that all mice play when the cat's away just because some do. Just the same, Ralph, said his mother, I do wish you would be more careful with whom you associate. I am afraid you'll fall in with the wrong sort of friends. I'm growing up, said Ralph. I'm getting too old to hang around a mouse nest all the time. I want to go out and see the world. I want to go down the ground floor and see the kitchen and dining room and storeroom and garbage cans out back. Oh, Ralph, cried his mother, not the ground floor, not all the way down there. You aren't old enough. Yes, I am, said Ralph stoutly. There's no telling what you might run into down there. Mouse traps, cats, poison. Why, out of the garbage cans, you might even be seen by an owl. I don't care, said Ralph. Someday I'm going downstairs. But think of the owls, Ralph, implored his mother. All right. We will finish this chapter up next time and probably start another. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you later. Bye, kiddos.